Chambers drop rates suck. That's a fact. But I think I know how to fix it. I ran over 100,000 simulations and found that you need to run, on average, 1,800 solo chambers in order to get all 12 unique items. Now, that's over 600 hours of efficient solo chambers. But remember, a bunch of people still would need to do way higher than that because they go unlucky. In fact, 1 in 10 people will be unlucky enough to have to do over 1,000 hours of solo chambers, efficient solo chambers, just to get all 12 of those uniques. Does that sound fun to you? Before I jump into this video, I just want to say I've been wanting to make this one for a long time. This has been in my notepad for, I think, 5-6 years. I wanted to make this way before I quit playing RuneScape and came back. It's been sitting on my shelf forever. And today I watched Sater's video, his ramble on drop rates, and it just inspired me to come back to this and just really think about it. I've also been waiting on trying to make a cool video with animations and graphs and stuff, but I saw Sater's video. He was just yapping at the camera. I don't have the editing skills to put something like that together. I was super inspired by this video by GameCube Yona, I think, who did a whole video on Barrow's drop rates. It was an awesome video, great for visual learners, but I'm not quite there yet with my editing skills. So for my visual people, I apologize, but I just need this to be heard. I know there are going to be a bunch of people who are going to be mad about Ignoble. Why are you trying to make the game easy? But I think people dumb it down too much. They think that there's only one hardcore side where the game cannot be changed. It has to stay exactly the way it is. And the other extreme casual who thinks that I should have every single unique before I even hit the drop rate. I think there's a happy medium inside. And I put my fair share of time into the game. I have, several hundred days played on my Iron Man, like 500-600 days. I finished most of the items end game grinds at one point before I got hacked. I've done over 1,000 chambers to get my first T-bow. It took me over 1,500 tops to get my first scythe. And I know the pain. I know what it's like to grind out these items. So when I say I still think it needs to be changed, I feel like I have the experience and I can say that. I also want this video to be focused on just chambers. I know in Sebe's video, he mentioned other areas where drop rates are messed up, and I agree. For example, Fasani's Nightmare, Nex, and other things, but just to keep myself focused on one thing, I can't be mad at too many things at one time. Let's just focus on chambers. The reason why chambers feels the worst in terms of drop rates from all of the raids is because there are 12 uniques on the drop table. TOA has 8, TOB has 7, meanwhile chambers has 12. The other aspect to this is every single raid other than chambers has one mega rare. You have the Shadow from TOA, you have the Scythe from TOB, but chambers has 3 mega rares on its drop table, which means you're going for the Kodai, you're going for the Elder Maul, and the Elusive Twisted Bow, all at the same hard drop rate. The second reason why chambers drops feel so bad is because the most common items, the Prayer Scrolls, Arcane, and Dex, are such high drop rates, meaning they have a drop weighting of 20 each of them out of 69. So a total of 40 out of 69. So over 50% of the time that you get a purple at chambers, 58% to be exact, it's going to be a shitty Prayer Scroll. My third reason is that given the fact you have to get 12 unique items, I think the purple rates at chambers are way too uncommon. You can argue that the drop rates are roughly the same as a 300 TOA because in chambers, you're supposed to get a purple in your name roughly every 870,000 points. A solo is around 33k points. Math comes out to like 26, 27 raids, you should see a purple. In TOA, same thing. It's about, if you do 300s, that's approximately the rate that you'll see a purple. But the difference is at TOA, you're going for 7 items. At chambers, you're going for 12, 3 mega rares. So I think it's a mix of all these compounding facts. There's the fact that there's 12 items to get, way more than any other raid. The scrolls, the common item here, are just weighted way too high. And the fact that you see that these purple rates are just uncommon makes chambers, all comes together and makes chambers just like a really not fun time if you're hunting all of the items. Now, all the items in chambers are pretty useful. There's maybe like 1 or 2 which may be less useful than the others, but in general, full Ancestral is best in slot in most places. All 3 of the mega rares. Kodai is best in slot for barraging. T-bow is just amazing across the game. Elder Maul has become buffed, so it's now a better version of a Dragon Warhammer, so it is a very useful item. And declaws are great. DHCB is kind of niche. You need both the prayer scrolls, of course, but that's a one-time consumable. So Din's Bulwark is also very niche. Like, this makes me think that all the items, like, you can bypass some of them, but you still need most of them. It's not like you can just do like 5 chambers, get 1 or 2 purples, call it a day. You still need to go for a vast majority of them. Kind of an aside, but kind of related, I really, really dislike that the method for getting the most points at chambers is doing these efficient alt-scaled raids, like 3+12s. I know is very meta right now. It requires you to have a separate account, which does all the lining up of mystics, shamans, and things like that, whereas where you're the account that you want the purple on, all that has to do is sort of do the DPS there. And I don't like the direction for that, because you can shave off half the time. Like, you can get rate points like 2 times faster than if you just did regular, very efficient solos. And it pushes people to want to get those alts. And that is not a gameplay loop that I think Jagex wants to go towards. Like in TOB, there's no way to like scale raids, I guess. There's no way to make it better. There's a 1 in 9.1 chance of getting a purple across the team no matter what. You can run duo, trio scales if you want better chances for your particular account. But a TOA, also, scaling's not very common. You just push the invocations. Like, you're not going to bring in a secondary alt account to do a lot of the work. So I think in general that needs to be addressed by, in any type of method. Now, am I going to do it? Probably yes. If you're given the opportunity to shave down a 1,000-hour grind down to 500, I would take it any day of the week. But I just don't think it is good for the long-term health of the game. Now that I'm done yapping on full cam, I wanted to show you the results of the 100,000 Monte Carlo simulations that I ran to predict how many raids it would take, how many hours it would take to get all 12 uniques. And I'll just throw in on the left, this is the weighting table according to the wiki of each of the items, all 12 items. And the math we talked about earlier, 870,000 points to get a purple, approximately, assuming roughly 33,000 points per raid, based off a typical solo unscaled raid, meaning 26-ish raids per purple. And after running these simulations, I want to point out, this is the graph that came from it, and I want to point out a few things. This is a graph of the probability of finishing all 12 items versus the number of purples that you get. So I have this little number called out over here at 50%, which means that for 50% of people, at 70, up to 70 purples is when they will finish chambers and get all 12 items. Now remember, that's 70 purples. That's not 70 raids. 70 purples, I equated all the way on the side over here. On the expected number of raids to hit 70 purples is 1,840. Assuming that a solo takes you 20 minutes a raid, which is, I think, pretty efficient, that is over 600 hours. Now, I just want to point out in terms of time, at the master tier of combat achievements is 21 minutes for a chambers, for solo unscaled chambers. I think GM is definitely faster than that, but still, this is assuming like only Irons are doing these this many solo chambers without a T-bow or without, end game gear, because they're hunting that T-bow from this specific raid, right? So honestly, I would say most of the time it'd probably be more than 20 minutes a raid. Additionally, you have to take into account you're probably taking breaks and stuff in between. This is like 600 efficient hours, and think about how many real hours that might be. Like 600 might turn into 700, 800, 900 hours. It's just crazy to me. And the reason I want to call out 70 purples is because that is a 50% mark. That means 50% of people are going to finish before that. But on the other flip side, 50% of people are going to take more than 70 purples. So it's going to take them more than 600 hours. The second one I wanted to call out was this one over here at 90%, meaning 90% of people, or flip side, 1 in 10 people will not finish all 12 items by 123 purples. That falls roughly around here, about like 3,000-ish chambers. Imagine me saying that to you. You have to do There's 1 in 10 people are going to do 3,000 chambers. 3,000 and still not finish all 12 items. That to me is insane. That is insane. I think that these drop rates need to be tuned in some manner, because we talked about the number of uniques. We talked about how highly weighted the prayer scrolls are. We talked about how uncommon the purples are at chambers. Like, it is the combination of all that which is an issue. If you address maybe one of those, or at least 2 of those pieces, I think that you can make chambers drop rates feel better. It's just when you take all those pieces into account, that's when it feels so bad. For those of you wondering how I put this together, I just wrote a short script to run 100,000 simulations. This is basically a version of the coupon collectors problem. The slight difference is that there are weightings to this. Not every single item is weighted equally, and the model takes that into account. If you don't know what the coupon collectors problem is, I highly recommend checking it out on ChatGPT or something, because the idea of statistics, drop rates, and coupon collecting kind of is built into the core of RuneScape based on all the drops you have to get from each boss. So definitely worth learning about if you want to strengthen your knowledge about the math that goes into everything behind all this. For consistency's sake, I want to take that number we just talked about, that 70 purples or 1,800 raids to hit that 50% mark. I want to compare it to what it looks like at TOB. Now, this page I didn't clean it up as much as the other one. I forgot to do that, but you know what I'm trying to go for here. The big ticket item at TOB is the Scythe. It is a 1 in 19 chance when you get a purple of getting that. A Vernic is weighted much higher, and then all the other items are twice as common as the Scythe. Now, I ran the same analysis, same calculations, ran a bunch of simulations using TOB, and found that it would take you, on average, 25 purples to hit that 50% mark. So what does that mean? You would need to get 25 purples in order to finish, on average, TOB. The question becomes, approximately how long is it going to take you to get those 25 purples? How many raids in order to do an apples to apples comparison? So just wanted to pull the drop rates up from TOB. I know we talked about a 1 in 9.1 chance of getting a purple for the entire team if there are no deaths. Once again, we're running a bunch of assumptions here, and there's so many variables that go into this. There's no perfect way to calculate it, but I'll outline the assumptions that I make, and then if in your case you have to change it or fix those numbers, you may have to do that. But based on my assumptions, let's round this to 1 in 9. There's a 1 in 9 chance of getting a purple across the entire team, and let's also assume that you're running 4-man TOBs. 4-mans are super comfy, but if you're hunting items, you're probably going to want to do trios. If you're good enough, you'd want to do duos. Solo is probably not recommended unless you're a Giga gamer, but hey, you do you. So if there's a 1 in 9 chance of getting a purple across the team, and there's a 1 in 4 chance of you getting the purple in your name, another assumption built into this is I'm not taking into account the MVP points and all that fun stuff. Let's just say there's an even chance of every one of the 4 players getting that purple. So let's say 1 in 9 times 1 in 4, 1 in 36 chance of you getting a purple in your name at each TOB. We can flip that and say you can expect to see a purple in your name roughly every 36 raids. Now, going back to our spreadsheet, remember how I said we need 25 purples to finish TOB? That 50% mark is 25 purples. 36 raids per purple times 25 purples puts you at 900. You're expected to run around 900 TOBs to green log all the items on coming from TOB. This doesn't include pet and kits and all that fun stuff, but just these items. Put that in comparison to chambers. 900 TOBs versus 1,800 chambers. You have to do twice as many chambers. That's crazy. Like, of course you have to take into account time, right? The time it takes to do a TOB, the time it takes to do a chambers. But for this sake, let's just say they're roughly the same. For chambers, I was doing it a service by saying 20 minutes a raid. Like, most cases with worse gear that is not max, you're probably running 25-minute raids, maybe even 30 if your gear is bad. So the fact that it takes 900 TOBs to finish TOB on average versus 1800 at Chambers, kind of, warning bells right there. I think those should be more aligned. Chambers, I think that number needs to be dropped down to around 1,000 Chambers. You should expect to finish it. There can be some unlucky people who go further, maybe 2,000, maybe even 3,000. I don't know if I want to subject someone to that. But like, I don't think the average person that 50% mark should be at 1,800 raids. That needs to be dropped down below 1,000. Now, these words are going to trigger a lot of folks. Duplicate protection. Now, I know everyone, there's very mixed feelings about this. I know some people who are very, very against it. Some people who are like, oh, it's kind of nice. But I think a tweaked version for Chambers of Xeric would do wonders for the drop rates. Now, my proposal is that let's take each of these items, all 12 of these items, and condense them into 4 tables. So, for example, I've sort of colored them here if you can see it. Sorry if you're colorblind. I don't think the colors are very friendly, but I'll say it out loud. The Arcane Index will be combined into a Prayer Scrolls table. There will also be a Weapons table, which contains the DHCB, the Buckler, the Bulwark, and the Claws. There will be an Ancestral table, which contains the Ancestral Hat, the top, the bottom. And finally, there's going to be a Mega Rares table, which is going to contain the Maul, the Kodai, and the T-Bow. Now, within each of these tables, I propose that we have duplicate protection. Now, once again, I'm not saying duplicate protection in the sense that you're going to get all 12. If you get 12 purples, you have to get all 12 of the drops, and then you're done at Chambers. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you hit one of these tables individually, you're sort of guaranteed duplicate protection inside of it. This is similar to Moons of Peril, where you are not guaranteed to get all 12 of the armor sets because there's 4 pieces for 3 different armor sets. You're not guaranteed to get 4, 4, and 4 and have 12 for your first 12 chests. You may finish one of the sets, and you can keep getting more of that particular set, but not have finished another set. Similar to that, that's kind of what I'm proposing here. When you hit the scroll table, for example, the first time you get an arcane, the next time you're guaranteed a dex. So basically for the prayer scrolls, it flips back and forth. Honestly, I don't really care about that. Arcanes and dexes are just so one-time consumables, not even a problem. I still think, I just want to point out that I kept the weightings of these items the same. So for example, the weighting for the arcane and dex was 20 and 20. I made the weighting of the proposed prayer scroll table to just be 40. Similar for all the other items on here as well. All the weapons added up to a weighting of 14, and that's when I put the weapons weighting. The entire weapons table is weighted at a 14. So looking at this, the big thing to me is for megas, right? This one, that's the one probably sticks out. That's probably ancestral as well. If you hit the mega table 3 times, you will be guaranteed to have received 1 of each. So for example, if the first time you get a Maul, the second time you're either going to get a Kodai or T-Bow. If the second time you get that Kodai, you're going to be guaranteed to get the T-Bow on that third time you hit that mega table. Now, that is a solution that I propose. I don't think that is a catch-all, end-all, be-all thing. There are other ways to fix this. Another one, as other people have pointed out very commonly, decrease the weighting of these arcane indexes coming from Chambers. One option is for challenge mode raids, is to decrease the weighting for them like they do for the other raids. In TOAs above 300, they have decreased Fangs and Lightbearers, the most common drops. In TOBs, in the hard mode version, the drop rate for Vernic is decreased, which is the most common drop. I'm very, very surprised that nothing like this has been applied already for Chambers. Challenge mode, no, you don't even, no perks. I guess you can go for the kits and stuff, but outside of that, The other thing they can do is fix those potential points per hour. For example, 33k raids, 33k points in a solo raid. Maybe up that. Maybe the more damage you do to Olm, increase that multiplier. Just buff it. Just straight. That is an option. Just a straight buff to the points per hour for solos and things like that. But unfortunately, I think that people may abuse that for scaled raids and seeing how that might affect things. There's a lot of nuances to take into account. So I just think a combination of some of these fixes could all playable, just almost anything. You know, Chambers has been out for what, 8-9 years, and only recently they made in the last like 2-3 years they made a bunch of quality of life changes for Chambers, but nothing regarding drop rates, which is very surprising considering that they touched TOA recently and nerfed the drop rates above 300. Like, they slashed the drop rates. Am I happy about that? No. I think it could have been done and implemented in a better way, but like, I still appreciate the fact that they're willing to go back and make those changes to those drop rates. Now, why not apply that same logic to Chambers, the original raid, the first raid? Now I want to show you what this looks like in action. Just a quick reminder, this means that when we hit each of these tables, I have to hit the scrolls table 2 times. I have to hit the weapons table 4 times. I have to hit the ancestral table 3 times to get all 3 ancestral pieces. And similarly, I need to hit the mega table 3 times in order to get all 3 of the mega rares. Now, this is a slightly modified version of the coupon collector's problem. It is a coupon collector's problem that still has the, different weightings, but now there's a multiplicity to it. Now I have to say, I want to hit this mega table 3 times. I want to hit this ancestral table 3 times, weapon table 4 times, scroll table 2 times. That was also included in the model. And after applying that, I plotted both the previous one and the new one below. You see that this, obviously this chart looks a little shifted to the left, and I'll call out the numbers here, very similar to how we did in the graph prior. That 50% mark of requiring, I guess let's take a step back. The number of purples it will take on average for 50% of people to finish is 36. Previously, it was 70 in the current method of how Chambers is done. So 36 purples versus 70, that's half. And that falls right between 30, 40. I'm going to say like that's going to be about like 900-ish rates, expected rates to finish Chambers. I think that is a solid spot to be. 900 solo Chambers. It'll take around 300 something hours to finish Chambers. I think that's pretty good. Once again, Jagex can tune these numbers, but just as a very quick first pass, keeping all the, that's the raw data. As a quick first pass, just like just bucketing these into these, these kind of tables, these smaller tables, and having this duplicate protection turned on, you can clearly see that this becomes way more reasonable. This 900-ish raids to finish is more in line with TOB. And looking at that 90% mark as well, that 1 in 10, that unlucky person, that 1 in 10 guy, he will have to do 61 raids to finish Chambers. And that 61 raids falls right about here, 1,500, just maybe 1,600 raids. So I think that's good. For 1 in 10 people have to do 1,600 raids. Pushing it past that, like maybe, I don't think anybody should ever have to do up to 2,000 raids. That is insane. The only reason you should be doing that many raids is because you are going for those completion capes. That is just a flex, a cosmetic item to show off that you have done that raid 2,000 times. You should not need to do that raid 2,000 times. You should do it for fun if you want those cosmetic capes. All right, I'm going to stop there. I think that's a pretty good stopping point. Jagex, if you're listening, I implore you to consider some type of solution to fix Chambers drop rates. It's been brought up for a long, long time. I'm sure if you go to the Ironscape subreddit, you'll hear a ton of complaining, probably even on the 2007 Scape subreddit, right? I know that there's a lot of nuance involved to this. You have to take into account, how does this affect alting? If, I am basing all of my calculations off solo Chambers, but what if this makes scaled alted raids insanely broken? Like, I know there's a lot of thought that goes into it. I know, it's not easy to just make a quick fix like that, but, I, and I'm sure many, many others on the subreddit, on players in general, willing to sort of provide solutions or like, hey, consider doing this, consider doing this. So please do something. That's all I ask. This raid has been out for a long, long time. You've made QOL changes to make the raid itself better, but in terms of just the drops, I know I'm an Iron Man. I'm biased. I'm hunting all these items again. It's tough. I don't want to have to do, 1,800 raids to get all my items back. I did like I don't even know how many chambers I have done, like maybe 1,500 total across CMs and regulars. And like, I still don't have the log complete. I'm missing a Kodai, and most of my items are now gone because I was hacked, so I have to go for those again. And I don't want to do 1,800 more raids on average to get that back. I could get lucky, but I don't know. I don't know. I just thought of a few other solutions that have been brought up. There are 12 items on here. Take some of the items off this purple drop table. For example, take all the ancestral pieces off, put them on a new boss. Or make sure there's not 3 mega rares at chambers. Make it consistent across the other raids, where you have just the T-bow. The iconic T-bow comes from the chambers of Xeric. The range weapon comes from chambers. The iconic scythe, the melee weapon, comes from TOB. The iconic mage weapon, the shadow, comes from TOA. Your 3 main raids. I don't know, man. There's a plethora of options. I think that there have been these potentials, like things thrown around by and suggested by many people across many years. I'm just really, really hoping that Jagex listens. Like there's a lot of possibilities out there and a lot of ways to potentially fix this. And I also realized, as a complete aside, probably irrelevant and is irrelevant to the actual drops themselves, speaking of consistency, which has also irked me, the 2K capes from TOA include both experts and regulars. The 2K cape from TOB includes both hard mode and regulars as well. But Chambers of Xeric, the 2K cape, is CM only. Like, can we be consistent, man? Can we just keep things... Like, I know this would... Like, if you change that, it would devalue the 2K CM cape for the people who did get there. But, hey, maybe put out a new cosmetic cape. I don't know, whatever. This is very, not useful to the discussion about drop rates, but something that has bothered me about Chambers for a long, long time. But hey, I know these are not videos that I make normally. This is the first time I've made a ramble style video. So shout out Seder for that inspiration. But like, maybe I'll stick with this. I'm back to playing RuneScape, man. It's like my passion for this game is sort of reignited now that I'm playing again. I know I've been gone for like 2-ish years, and to come back full force it's a good time. It's a really good time. For those of you who are watching and do want to follow along with how I am rebuilding my iron, I know I did mention I got hacked when I came back. I kind of go through all the details of what happened there, what I want to do, and how that is sort of shaping up to be on this YouTube channel. So I think there's a couple of videos out. I released one just yesterday. So go check that out if you want to follow along and see what happens. But outside of that, Jagex, I hope you're listening, man. There's a lot of things you could do, and I get so frustrated thinking about all the possibilities that have not been implemented. So I don't know. For everyone listening, if you agree with some of the thoughts that I brought up, great, let me know. And if you don't, also let me know. I think hearing discourse about the best way to implement this solution, there's no one perfect way. I would love to hear why my solution is bad. I would love to hear why it's good. I'd like to hear your solutions as well. So I will keep an eye on the comments. And outside of that, I'll see you guys when the next video comes.